Well, hello. Today in front of us we have, well, a bunch of Honda VT500 engines. So these are Honda's 500cc V twins. And, well, today we're only going to be talking about the North American models because that's all I have access to here in Wisconsin, USA. So before us we do have a VT500 FT Ascot engine, a VT500C Shadow engine, and then another cover that we will talk about. So all these VT500s, they debuted in 1983. From 1983 to 1984, they didn't change a single thing. Come in 1985, they did change out a few things. And there are a few differences between the Shadow engine and the Ascot engine. Now, the bikes as a whole, the Ascot and the Shadow, they are quite different, but mechanically they are the same, or at least the same enough where you can interchange a big number of parts. You can interchange a lot in between the Ascot and the Shadow 500s. But there are still some differences. So this is a 1983 Ascot engine that we recently restored for a customer. We completely rebuilt it inside and out. It had 55,000 miles, and these engines are so nice, you wouldn't believe it. Took it apart completely, and the main crankshaft bearings looked like they were brand new. Incredible. And this is not an engine that anyone's had apart at any point. But we went through, we had to grind the exhaust seats, and then we went and ported the heads, and then we assembled it otherwise, completely stock to spec. And then we took it, resurfaced all of these shiny aluminum, and then painted it. From the factory, these are normally just black, like this. This is a nice factory paint job. They start kind of a semi-gloss, but over the years they dull. But yep, generally black, and then all the silver is just the aluminum that's been machined and then clear coated. And then all the coolant lines are galvanized black. They're almost black. They are galvanized, but it's not too great. And then the oil lines, same story. They're galvanized to some sort of degree of black, but over time as they fade, they just become an olive green, while the rest of the actual paint, it fades into a kind of light navy blue, like this guy has. So that happens. But from 83 to 84, they were all black, just like this, with just a couple silver striped heads, silver valve covers, and then the silver round faces. From 85 to 85 on up, they changed a few things. They went with chrome coolant tubes. They left the oil tubes that galvanized black. They kept the heads that the silver striped. Valve covers are the same. The side covers, even though they're interchangeable, they're no longer black. They're completely silver, but they are the same shape. So everything between these are completely interchangeable. But there are a few differences as far as the years go, because I mentioned the cosmetic differences. But you also find that the 83 to 84 engines, every single one has this tachometer camshaft drive. So that drive spins the tachometer, and it runs off of the leading camshaft. Now for 85 on up, they got rid of that. They stopped using the cable and instead used a electronic tachometer that uses pulses from one of the two ignition coils. Yep. But aside from that, everything else between these is completely interchangeable. You'll see that these side covers, this black one, like I said, is an 83 to 84. That silver is in the 85 on up. They're completely the same aside from the finish. But you'll notice that the Shadow one, it's not a full circle unlike the Ascot. And that is because on the Shadow, this is where your foot peg is. You imagine this looking like the foot peg. It goes right up in here, and because there has to be a mount behind it that mounts onto the frame, the mount takes up some space of where the circle would normally be. So that's why this is half cut away. It's just so that you can fit the shadow mount here for the foot peg. So you can put this on an Ascot and it'll be fine, but it'll look kind of funny because on the Ascot, everything above my hand is completely exposed, unlike the shadow where a lot of this is just covered up. But yep, they're completely interchangeable. However, if you use the Ascot cover on a shadow, you will have interference issues with that foot peg mount there. Now the left side isn't an issue. So on the left side, all the engines are the full circle. But we will take these engines and we will spin them around real quick. So I spun the engines around, and you can see that, yep, even on the left side, they're all still the same. However, every single shadow engine, there'll be any from 83 on up, every single one will have this shorter shift shaft. You can see the spines are barely just outside of that seal. While on the Ascot, it is about 2 inches longer. Even though the casting that the seal is in is the same exact thing between these two engines, the shaft itself is quite different. Now the shafts are completely interchangeable, but should you interchange them, there are a few things you need to take note of. When you put the shadow one inside the Ascot, you do have to make a custom shift shaft. If we look over here, you can imagine that you have to make a lever that comes out this way at you and then bends again forward. Well, on the Ascot, you can just use the stock one that sticks forward right from the get-go. But the shadow one, because it has the forward mounted foot controls, it's designed to have a chunk of linkage that can shift forward and backwards as you kick the lever to hook up to the lever. So then that will actually shift kind of like it would on the Ascot, even though your lever is rigid on here versus the shadow one where there is a little bit of linkage involved. But otherwise, again, they're completely same on this side. The only difference being that shift shaft we mentioned for the shadows. But then, of course, all the 85s on up have the complete silver side cover and then the chrome coolant tubes. But that's essentially all the differences. Inside the engines, you don't notice a single difference between the Ascot and the Shadow. So putting in the Ascot motor, you're not going to increase your horsepower or anything. They're exactly the same pistons, same crankshaft, same exact transmission gear ratio, same clutch, same flywheel, same ignition timing, same compression, same camshaft, same valves. Absolutely everything is the same. Even the carburation is the same, despite them having slightly different exhausts. Now, the real performance difference between the Ascot and the Shadow is the final drive. And the final drive varies some. On the Ascot, it's geared more towards acceleration than the Shadow. The Shadow is geared more towards top speed, which is really cruising. It favors cruising. It lets you cruise at a lower RPM. But yes, we just wanted to cover engines, so that's what we did. I do have a few moments left. We can talk about this one here that we've restored. Like I said, this wasn't the factory paint job. This is our paint job, and it's factory specification, kind of. So all the black that was on the engine is now black again. It's nice and fresh. It's glossy instead of the semi-gloss. It seems to dull. As this dulls, it will just look more factory. That's the beauty of it. But otherwise, if you keep this inside and keep bugs and grease and whatever off of it, it'll live a long, happy life, and it'll look shiny like this for a very long time. But we also went and we sanded all the fins. We sanded the faces, so now they looked machined again. Unlike these, these get pretty ugly because the clear coat on these does fade and wear out over time. It just makes these guys oxidize. But before we go here, I'll note one last difference. On this 85 engine, see the fins down here at the bottom? The last four stick in a little bit, unlike all these other ones. So that's something to keep in mind with the 85 on and up shadow engines. They have a little bit longer fins, but otherwise inside and out, completely the same. But we'll stop here and we'll check in with you guys later.